Hello, hello, Sir David the Bard coming to you from the famous Kangaroo City in Australia. I have a little more energy today. I did a couple of videos and I lost my funny. I don't know if I got my funny back yet, but we'll see. I wanted to start this video by telling you how much I appreciate. I haven't done a video for quite a while, just being lazy. And so many of you have been kind to say, hey, I'm glad you're back. And I know my ex-wives are never part of that group. But anyway, I'm back. And I did 2 videos on sudden infant death syndrome. And this one I'm going to do on astral projection, out-of-body experiences. Now, you're probably all going to say, God, is there anything this guy doesn't know? And the answer is no. I know everything. Ask my wife about that. Anyway, let me give you a quick report on my family. My Abigail, my oldest daughter that's at home here, she's gone into the Army. She's passed boot camp and she's in the intelligence, top secret part of the Army. My little Allison is 17. She's kind of having problems here and there. And I haven't had a 17-year-old that doesn't have problems. That seems to be the magic age of screw up. But anyway, she's working and she has a job now, and I'm not letting her drive yet because she follows too close and she goes too fast. Until that changes, I'm not going to let her drive under my insurance. And my in-laws, Grandpa and Grandma, they're still here. They're both healthy. Grandma has a full-time job, so there is an immigrant that is doing well, making a contribution. And Ty is still doing his pictures, his artistry. He's doing an art painting of me, and I'm looking forward to that. So Mercy, my wife, what a wonderful person. She can't do enough for me, and you know, I would never marry an American girl ever again. These Filipino girls, they know how to take care of a man. She's doing well, and I just wanted to let you know that my health is basically the same. I'm just getting old. I can't walk as far anymore, and I have to sit down. And I sleep a lot. I sleep about 12 hours a day, which is a lot, but that'll stop when I'm dead. Anyway, let me do this video on astral projection. I am a little bit of an expert on it because I've had out-of-body experience. Let me tell you, when I was 12 years old, I was sleeping in my regular bed, and my brother was in the room, Randy, who is in the Philippines in a squatter's camp, living like a king because his Social Security makes him millions of pesos a month. Anyway, I was asleep, and I woke up. Now, when I did this, there was a lot of things that were not known. There's been some evolution of information. I woke up in a twilight sleep. It's between being awake and being asleep, and you're paralyzed. You can't speak, you can't yell, you can't move, you're paralyzed. So I woke up in that twilight sleep, and I was there, and I was very, very concerned. Of course, in those days, I was a Mormon, and all of a sudden, while I was in that paralysis, my spirit, energy, body, soul, whatever you want to call it, came up out of my body on the bed, and it laid on its side just like I was laying in the bed. And I could look back and I could see my physical body, so I knew I was out. So right there I began to know that there was some kind of a spirit or some kind of a soul that's in us all, because I came out, I looked back, and I was still laying on the bed. I was terrorized at 12 years old that I was dying. Now I look forward to it. But anyway, I woke up, and I was able to see my body out, and then I looked back and I was able to consciously lower my spirit back into the physical body, and then I was awake. Then I was totally awake. Well, I was, like I said, scared and terrorized. I went in and told my parents about it, and my dad had some wisdom in those days. He's never had any since, but anyway, he said, "You need to write it down." And I said, okay, so I did. I kept a journal and I wrote it down. Then I went off to BYU, and I used to drive a lot from BYU to Ojai, California, where I was raised. And it's an 11, 12-hour trip, depends on how fast you go. And at BYU, I had 2 or 3 experiences where I was 19 years old, and I kept waking that twilight sleep, and I often waked in that twilight sleep. I didn't always come out of the body during those twilight sleep, but they were the beginning of coming out. Well, I used to drive a lot between BYU and Ojai. It's about 750 miles. And I noticed that when I drove and was on vacation and I was sleep deprived, that these experiences would come more often. So I started to put 2 and 2 together, and I came up with 5 as usual. I was outside the box. It means I was out of jail. Anyway, I would drive and I would stay awake for 24 hours between the driving and taking off from BYU. And when I drove, I only ate Hershey bars and a Coke for food for 24 hours. Well, I began to put 2 and 2 together, and I figured out that fasting and deprivation of sleep were 2 common denominators of astral projection. That as I did those things, I was more prone to having out-of-body experience. And then I began to take it a little more serious, and I began to study it in college. And I have to credit Truman Madsen. He's dead now. So he's out of body now. Anyway, Truman Madsen I had for a class there at BYU, philosophy. I didn't want to learn about Plato and Socrates and that. I wanted to study astral projection. And he gave me special permission to do that for his class, as long as I didn't tell the authorities at BYU that he was allowing an exception. So anyway, I began to study, and I went to the BYU library. In those days, we didn't have computers. And I began to pull down books. Now, there's a book by Oliver Fox, F-O-X, on astral projection. And I think the book is out of print, so I don't know if you can get a copy of it or not. You may be able to. But anyway, it's one of the best books I've ever seen on astral projection, and it was written many years ago. So anyway, deprivation, sensory deprivation. When I'm driving at night, the sensory systems are not as sharp, especially eyesight. You don't see as much at night as you do in the daytime. And I began to think and see that astral projection, in my case, now every case is not the same. So don't confuse that just because I didn't do this or I did do this, that they all are the same. So anyway, I put 2 and 2 together and thought, well, sensory deprivation, sleep deprivation, fasting, those things caused they didn't cause, but they were, see, I'm having my senior moment. Those things were indicative of astral projection. Now let me tell you about astral projection, what I know, and how my sudden infant death syndrome wormed its way into the situation. There's 2 places in the Bible that you can refer to. The first one is Paul. He said, whether in the body or out, I could not tell. So he knew something about astral projection, whether in the body or out, I could not tell. The other biblical reference to astral projection is in Ecclesiastes. I think it's Ecclesiastes 13, but it may not be 13, but it is 13, Ecclesiastes 13. I don't remember the verse, but you can look it up. I mean, you know, I don't have to do that shit anymore. Anyway, the second quote says, "If ever the silver cord be loosed, or the cistern broken at the hub, then basically the body dies and life goes to dust and it's over." It was talking about death in that situation. Now let me tell you why those things are important. We know that Paul, being in the body or out, I cannot tell, right there is clear proof in the Bible that Paul knew something about astral projection. The other thing that I began to put together is a theory of what it does and how it works. I counseled with Charles Tart, T-A-R-T, who has a book on altered states of consciousness. I went to one of his conferences and talked to him for a little bit. So here's what's going on with astral projection in my situation. You can read a lot of books, you can get a lot of comments from different people. I'm just telling you what happened to me and how I came up with my theory. Now, one of the things that you get with astral projection is the people that report it. I did a very large literature review on these subjects before I began to put together a theory. But one of the things that you get with astral projection is people say they have a silver cord or white cord that goes from the head region of the physical body to the astral body. And I don't remember anybody referring to where it is on the astral body, if it's attached to the head or not. But instinctively, everyone who has seen that cord has reported that if it becomes tangled or broken, they're dead. They know that, so they're very careful with that cord and very conscious that they're out of the body, and somehow there's an umbilical cord that goes from the physical body to the spiritual body that keeps it alive. And in my situation, I believe that it causes sensory input, that basically that cord is like an umbilical cord to a baby. When it's born, it goes from the, the mom to the baby. And in astral projection, the silver cord goes from the head region of the physical body to the spiritual body. Now, not everyone reports the silver cord. I don't report it because I didn't see it. I wasn't that far away from my physical body. I was only about 2 feet up in the air, 2 feet over in the living room, in the bedroom. Anyway, I didn't see the silver cord, so I'm not going to report that, but I'm going to report that a lot of people see it. Now, I didn't see any people or anything like that, but I did see some darkness. Now, again, you can put your own religious, golden rod to the flaming sword to the seer's stone. You can put all that shit on it that you want, but the fact is that I didn't see the silver cord, and I began to experiment. And as I fasted and I sleep deprived, the experiences came. I only had about 3 of them at BYU. I remember one where I had one at BYU that my feet were coming up out of the physical body, and I was terrorized. I didn't know what was going on. I was very scared, and I was trying to scream and I couldn't scream. But as soon as the feet started to go back into the physical body, I became alive and able to speak and move and whatever. And I was yelling and woke my roommate up, and he thought I was having a nightmare. He didn't know he was the nightmare, Dwight. Let me take a diversion. Dwight. Now, if you have the name Dwight, don't take offense, but it's a stupid name. And they decided to put a non-member with me at BYU and Chipman Hall. And I guess I was supposed to try to convert him to Catholicism or Mormonism, whichever one I wanted. And me and Dwight, we didn't get along at all. I was kind of a type A personality, and he was kind of a Z person, like a little zombie. Anyway, he had glasses and kind of a geek-looking guy. And one day, Jesus, I don't know how I graduated from BYU. If they knew half the stuff that went on. Anyway, one day, I threw some of his clothes out the window, and there's a ledge that is there by the window, and you can climb out the window. And so I threw some of his clothes out there, and when he climbed out the window, I shut the window and I locked it. Now here's Dwight in his semi-underwear out on the ledge, and BYU security thought he was being an exhibitionist, or that he was going to jump off with a suicide. I don't know what they thought, but I left the window locked and then I went to lunch. I don't know how the guy ever got back in the room. I really don't. I don't know if security took him down or he jumped down. It was too high to jump down. But anyway, the non-member Dwight, I was setting a good example with. He had another experience with me. I was out on campus and I found a dead bird. It was like a black bird and it was dead. And so I snuck it into the dorm. This isn't funny, this is torture. I put it on his pillow in his bed. And we went to bed that night and he pulled his blanket back from the pillow and there's this dead crow on his bed. He accused me of putting it there, and of course I raised my hand to the square and lied my ass off and said, I didn't do it, you must have somebody else being mean to you. So anyway, I did have out-of-body experience in the dorm. Now I only had them I had it at 12 years old and I had it at 19 years old. And the common denominators was sensory deprivation, fasting, darkness is very important for out-of-body experiences, and I didn't see the silver cord. Now here's what I think happens, and this is just me. You don't like it, turn it off. I don't like it, I think I'll turn it off. Anyway, when I go to sleep, and I'm extrapolating this now over all the human population, there's a couple things that go on, and we know a little bit more about REM sleep now than we did 50 years ago when I came up with these theories. But one thing about a theory is that as you add more information that is scientific, the theory becomes stronger. So anyway, when you sleep, when I sleep, there are different stages of brain function. And our respiration, our breathing, comes from the brain in the early parts of sleep. Now, there are several periods per night that we fall into what's called REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. And it's the dream cycle. We know now that that's when we're dreaming, and we know that basically the body is paralyzed from the neck down, because the breathing apparatus goes from the brain to the medulla at the bottom of the spinal cord. So there's a switch there. Somehow there's a switch over from the brain to the spinal cord. I don't know if that switch can be broken. I don't know if that switch is electrified. I don't know if it's a nerve connection. I don't know. But I know that the shift from the brain to the medulla to dream. So in the dream cycle, I think the dream cycle is artificial information that goes to the body. The body is paralyzed and it's basically really sleeping. That is the deepest stage. And I know that's different than the literature, but my theory, goes beyond the literature. The REM is the deepest stage of the sleep cycle. During REM, we're dreaming, we're going places, we're doing things, we're talking to people, and it's artificially stimulating and situating that we are receiving sensory input. I believe that the sensory input is what keeps us alive. If the sensory input is cut on humans, they die. They die. We go into hallucinations and sensory deprivation, which is desperate long-term memory banks trying to keep the body alive. But anyway, we come back to the body after we have our REM sleep. I believe that we're out of the body most of the time in REM sleep. All the time, I couldn't tell. I'm like Paul. Anyway, we're out of the body and we're receiving artificial sensory input. Okay, then when we go back to the body, the REM sleep stops and the switching device goes again. We go back from the medulla back to the brain for respiration. Now, I think that we really need to take a hard look at sensory deprivation, how it impacts out-of-body experiences. Now, I've had preliminary, short arguments with Steve Benson, President Benson's grandson. He's my age. We went to BYU together, and I talked a little bit to him about out-of-body experiences, and he says it's nothing but hallucinations and fantasy of the brain. There's no such thing. But that's not my experience. My experience is I got out of the body, I looked back, I could see the physical body. There were two different bodies at the same time, and both were existing separately. And like I said, I didn't see the silver cord. So anyway, I wanted to get out that sensory input is what keeps bodies alive. Now, I'm going to do a little bit, it's going to make this video a little bit long, but I want to get it out because I'm ready to die. Once these things are out and gone, you know, I don't have any reason to be here. But anyway, I wanted to compare death to sensory input according to SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. I'm finding, and I'm going to share some personal experiences here, but it seems to me we start with birth and we end with birth. The things that happen to us as a baby are the things that are happening to me right now. Now let me give you an example, and you're all going to say, oh, we already know these things, and if you do a damn video so I can see it, will you? Anyway, let's start at the toes, okay? When a baby is born, it can't take care of its own toenails. You have to have a wife to do that. You become somewhat a little bit helpless in that. And when you're a baby and you're an old person, you have trouble with balance. You can't walk very well, and you fall down. Old people get more injuries, but not really, because babies usually knock their head or get their lip cut. So when you're an adult and you're a baby, you can't walk very good and you have to hold on to a rail. You see that with babies, you see that with me. I have to, excuse me, be holding on to a rail. A baby can't see and a baby can't hear well when they're first born, and it takes a while for their sensory systems to turn on strong. In an old person, you get the same person. I can't hear, I can't see, I can't taste, and I can't do a lot of things that a baby can't do either. So we're following along that same path. I have to have my food cut now because my dexterity is not good. You ever feed a baby? It's got cake all over its face. They don't have good manual dexterity, and I kind of look like that too. I need a bib sometimes when I'm eating, and a baby needs a bib sometimes when it's eating. And the path down the road, the baby has to be fed until it can actually feed itself. A baby has a sipper cup. I don't have a sipper cup yet, but I just drink out of a bottle. God damn. Oh, this is crazy. So anyway, the baby drinks out of a bottle. I drink out of a bottle. The baby has a sipper cup, and then I have a regular glass that I spill from. Anyway, we see that the sensory deprivation on a baby causes, I think, out-of-body experiences. I think that the baby is sleeping so much, those first few months of life, they're sleeping all the time, that their spirit is out of the body, receiving sensory input to keep the baby alive during the dream cycle. And what I see happening with me in my situation is I'm getting older. I can't see, I can't walk, I can't taste, I can't smell, and the sensory of touch is starting to fade. And what's happening now is that when I sleep 12 hours a day, just like a baby, I'm putting a stress on the sleep mechanism, and somehow the silver cord is going to get broken or cut. And what you'll find is Grandpa in the chair, he seemed to be pretty happy, pretty alert, etc. You find him dead. Well, what's he died of? Doctors will put heart disease, neurological failure or whatever, but I think they died of sudden infant deaths, and I feel it coming in my life. I need to have a fan on in the daytime for oxygen, and I have oxygen at night, and I have sleep apnea, which is the beginning of the out-of-body experiences, and the baby has sleep apnea, and they die of no cause. Basically, the spirit just escapes from their body because they don't have sensory input, and there's no cause of death. And of course, the parents haven't done anything to help the baby die. They've given it the best life they can, but some babies just come with systems that are not well developed. So anyway, made my video a little bit long. If you're interested in astral projection, there are many books on it, and of course these days you don't go to books, you go to the computer. But if you get a chance, get Oliver Fox's book and read. He thinks that the pineal gland is where the cord hooks on, and he knows a lot about it. But I learned a lot about it with my own self-experimentation. And Dwight probably caused me to have out-of-body experience because he was such a nerd. So anyway, that's my astral projection video. And again, I want to thank the people who have written and said they miss me. My mother never has missed me, and my brothers and my sisters don't miss me, but my folks on the internet say, we miss you. I'm healthy, wealthy, wise, I'm doing fine. The Danites, no, they have not got me yet. And the Mormon Church has made a lot of changes, and I've got 3.1 million hits on my videos, so somebody's looking at it, and I'm beginning to believe, and it may be I'm bipolar, and it's grandiose, that's very possible, but I've got a feeling that the Mormon Church had somebody looking at my videos, and that they've made some changes that are just astronomical. Changes I thought I would never see in my lifetime. One of them is the Boy Scouts, that's gone. And number two is the home teaching and visiting teaching, that's done away with and gone. The 3-hour church meeting is down to 2 hours now. And the women can be in the temple witnessing a baptism for the dead, which used to be only a priesthood holder's privilege. We have the Mormon Church allowing marriages outside the temple and not having to wait a year. I had to wait a year. It was punishment because I didn't marry in the temple, and they used to make you wait a whole year. Now you can get married and then 10 minutes later go to the temple and get your endowments and learn all their magic handshakes and etc. So there's been some very, very good changes. The Mormon Church has put out the essays. If you want to know more true information about the Mormon Church, go to mormon.org and look at the essays that are written. The Mormon Church doesn't believe you're going to be a god and you're not going to be on a planet. They've changed that particular philosophy, and they've admitted that Joseph Smith had 40 wives. Half of them were married. Some of them were 14 and 16 years old. And there's 2 or 3 other essays. Well, there's more than that. I think there's 10 essays. But anyway, they've made some very, very unique changes. And I'm beginning to wonder if my videos didn't have something to do with that. Now, I could be grandiose, which I am, because I'm bipolar, but it's too many coincidences. The things that I complained about are the things that have been changed. I used to do a report every time I saw a child molestation. I did a report on the video, and I was getting them 1 or 2 a day. A day in Salt Lake City. Somebody, 1 or 2 people were getting charged with sexual conduct with a child. Well, after I've been making those videos and producing that, the Desert News, the Mormon newspaper, bought the Daily Herald, which was the independent news source in Salt Lake City, and now we don't have one report. Not one report. So, you know, obviously you have to say a few things. One is the molestation isn't happening. Well, the Boy Scouts are gone, so that molestation is not going on. But there doesn't seem to be any reports of child molestation at all. I don't see it in the newspaper. I don't see it on the computer. I'm not real up to date on all things because I've been lazy. I'm getting old, and I'm just speaking from experience that somehow the Mormon paper quit producing and had the other paper quit producing child molestation cases because it looked so poor on the Mormon Church. I watch TV a lot, and I see commercials, and one of them says, if you've been a victim of abuse in the Catholic or Mormon Church, please call this number and we can get money for you. So anyway, this is my video on astral projection. It's my video on some of the final phases of crib death, and I hope it does some good. I appreciate all of you that look at my videos. I'm amazed that 3.1 million people basically have looked at them. But this is David, Sir David the Bard. I'm going to end with health in the navel, marrow in the bones, strength in the loins, and in the sinews, power in the priesthood be upon me and upon my posterity through all generations of time and throughout all eternity. This is the Bard. He's gone.